2 of our Absolute Beginners Blender series. Lesson 2 is going to be creating simple polygons or meshes. Let me explain. So first things first, this is just the way the program looks when it opens. I'm going to click here to exit the splash screen. This is the default scene. I just have the factory settings for Blender set up here. It begins with a cube at the origin. We have a camera, we have a light. This is just the way that my scene opens. We are going to familiarize ourselves with what these objects are and just the preliminary parts of them and beginner transformations. Let me explain. So a mesh or a polygon is just the simple volume of the shape itself. If you hear somebody refer to an object in Blender, that's a little bit more complicated. It may have materials assigned, specular information, all kinds of fun like highlights and rendering stuff that we can get to. But the mesh or the polygon is just the object itself, just the volume itself. How do we add more? So we got a couple of options. Up here at the top, we have the Add button, and you can go to Mesh. You'll see there's a bunch of other things that we can get to as we explore more. But you go to Mesh, there's plane, cube, circle, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder cone, torus, which is like a donut, grid, and monkey. Monkey is Suzanne. You can see it says construct a Suzanne mesh. She's Blender's little mascot. She's a star. She's very cute. You will absolutely see her as you play around in this program more. So this is one option. This is a great way to add things in. But you can also go to Shift A. So we're going to talk a lot about quick keys or hotkeys in the program just to speed up your workflow and make it a little bit more streamlined. But Shift A will bring up that exact same menu, and it's a little bit easier to get to. So if you select plane, you'll see the orange square that pops up right at the origin. So our little circle or 3D cursor here is set to the origin, and so things will just automatically populate there. There's nothing wrong with that. That's completely fine. We can grab our move tool and just tug on the arrows to push those out of the way. Our move tool is your first transformation tool that you'll really get acquainted with. It has arrows in each direction for each axis that you can move it on. You can tug or push on each of the axes to move it in that way. You can technically grab it from the center and move it on every axis at the same time, but to me that's not very precise and I don't find that particularly helpful. So that is one way to populate objects into your scene, is you can just hit Shift A, pull up your menu, decide what you want, and it pops up there at the origin, everything in the same spot. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. This is perfectly doable. Option number 2, if you grab on your little 3D cursor here, it pulls up the circle for you. You can select any position in space and it will populate there where you put it. So if we hit Shift A again, we can do a circle and it pops up just where you set it. If you hit over here, Shift A, UV sphere, Shift A, icosphere, and on and on and on. And you can, do this as often as you choose. I'm just going to add 3 more, I'm sorry. So I get a cylinder, a cone, and a torus, or a little donut ring shape. So now we have all of our objects in the scene. All of this is good. There's also the grid and the Suzanne monkey. When you have your objects in the scene, you have your basic transformation options, which are move, rotate, and scale. Again, you can select any of these with your mouse by pressing on the buttons, and that is perfectly doable. It may be faster to hit G for grab, R for rotate, or S for scale. And then you can move it on those different axes. And all of that is good. I have my gizmos turned on. The little gizmo is the handlebars that you can tug on. This is for scale. Again, you can tug from the center, which I think is a little bit chaotic. I'm just gonna undo that. Or you can tug on each axis to scale or move or rotate, depending on which tool you're on. If your little gizmo does not show up, sometimes that happens. Sometimes people have that issue, particularly if you're in a school or on a shared computer, something like that. Over here, right above your viewport, is a little drop down, and you can change your object gizmos. Mine is just set to the default, but there's lots of other options and personalized settings you can do. So this is just creating basic objects. We can use our transformation tools to transform the objects as a whole. We can also use our transformation tools to manipulate the objects and the parts of an object. Let me explain. Going to be constructed of 3 basic parts, and those parts are the vertex, the face, and the edge. When you manipulate any polygon, you can explode it into something fabulous. A cube could become a house, could become a couch, could become a table, and so on and so forth, but you have to manipulate the parts of it. So what we're going to do is go over here from the Layout tab into the Modeling tab. This is just a different workspace. You see already that different parts of this torus here are selected. So right now, if you look over here at the top of the screen, there's 3 different buttons. So we have vertex, we have edge, and we have face. So right now, the little orange dots are on each vertex, or on all of the vertices together. If we go into edge mode, we see that edges are highlighted. And if we go into face mode, it looks slightly different than edge mode because we're selecting just one face. So from this point, you can, hang on, I'm going to move just that one face, and you can kind of explode your shape. Now, this is not, the ultimate goal of creating a whole perfect rendered scene, but just the basic idea. So I can move that, I can rotate that one face, I can scale that one face, and all of a sudden we have something that's a little different than what we started with. And again, this is not trying to create anything specific, just trying to get used to the tools as what they are. So let's say that you are gonna explode each of these shapes just to try to get used to it, just to see what sort of changes you can make. I'm still in face mode, so if I grab the face of, hang on, this one, and I make it really, little, we now have something that slightly resembles a lampshade, but it's not quite a cone, right? So there's all kinds of different ways we can do this. So what I did there was I toggled in between editing mode and just this view mode by hitting tab. So tab will get you to all of these kind of options selected, just the whole object, or if you hit tab again, will show up with all of these modeling options that we will absolutely get into. So this is just the basic parts of a polygon, basic introduction to polygons. And the last thing that I want to mention before we get in there is that you actually can look at how all of these work as a whole, like how many vertices are there, how many edges are there, how many faces are there. So if I pull up Shift A and let's put in a plane, right? Down here at the bottom, there's a little button that says Add Plane. So if I look at each part of that, it tells me, okay, well, there's the size, here's the rotation, here's the location, all the way over there in space. Awesome, just from the start. Cool. I'm gonna place one over here, Shift A, and I'm gonna pull up a circle. Okay, well now it shows me, because I already have this menu, opened, the number of vertices, the radius, and all of these options just as it begins. You can change that number. That can be, I don't know, 5, right? And now I have a little pentagon instead of a circle. So there's different ways that you can edit just right from the start, simply. This is just a beginning. I would say this is the first step in starting to create your objects and place them in your scene, your polygons, your meshes, and starting to populate them. Once you get comfortable creating them and working with them just as they are, you can start to get into more specifics and creating more complicated meshes, more complicated models, and start to get into the really fun stuff like materials and rendering and lighting and all that good stuff. So this is just the beginning. Stay tuned.